One of the new arcanes we received is called Primary Debilitate, and holy crap, this arcane is a huge buff to status-based weapons. I'm talking tons of status effects and way more damage. It is super satisfying because it allows you to benefit from the combined element and the base element too. You can mix and match to any element that you see fit and it will still shred everything. Plus, you can have some insane scaling with this new arcane. In this video, we'll be going over Primary Debilitate a bit more and go over some weapons and frames to pair with it. But it does come with a minor flaw, which we will go over in a second. Let's begin. How does the arcane work? If an enemy has 10 stacks of a combined status effect like radiation, magnetic, gas, and more, inflicting the same status effect again has a 100% chance to inflict one of the base status effects it is composed of. You see what I mean about the status-based weapons here? They have received a huge buff with this arcane, especially if you're someone who enjoys damage over time builds, which I personally enjoy. The arcane will only activate once per damage instance though. The extra base status effect that is created when reaching over 10 stacks is applied as a separate instance of damage, meaning faction damage bonuses like Banes and Raw will multiply the damage over time procs of heat, electricity, and toxin by 3 times. This is what makes it incredibly powerful. If you would like to fully maximize this arcane's potential, it is prudent that you run either a Bane or Raw on your setup. What elements should you run? Honestly, it comes down to personal preference, as you will still benefit from the main combined status effect that you were using anyway, which is what makes this arcane so amazing. It doesn't compromise you using certain combined elements that you don't necessarily want, and you could use ones that you still enjoy. If you would like a recommendation, honestly, radiation is pretty good because you gain heat and electricity, gas for heat and toxin, corrosive for electricity and toxin. Another option is using blast, so you will get the heat and you can cryo control enemies with cold. Alternatively, you could still use viral for toxin and cold. Again, like I said, it really does come down to your personal preference. You don't have to go out of your way to mod for an element that you don't want. Now, what is the flaw that I mentioned? Well, it's enemies that cannot reach 10 stacks. Like I said, it's a small flaw, since this pretty much makes up a very small portion of Warframes' total enemies, but bosses, acolytes, necromechs, and so on, enemies that are locked to, let's say, 4 stacks of a status effect will be the bane of this arcane's existence. It's not to say that it's completely unusable against these enemies, it definitely still is worth using, but if you were hoping that you could stack up hundreds of status effects on these enemies, well, it can't. It couldn't before and it can't now. It does suck, but at the same time, it's completely understandable because you probably will just one-shot the bosses. What type of weapons are good? Status-based weapons. I've said that multiple times. Ones that can apply as many status effects as possible so that you reach the 10 stacks of your desired combined effect so that you can keep proccing the base elements that you would like. Alternatively, using a Warframe that increases your status chance drastically so that you can enjoy this arcane a bit more, like Citrine, Saito 9, Dante, etc, etc. Let's talk about the list of weapons that I want to suggest, but I want to very quickly preface this. I won't be showing builds for all of these weapons because a lot of the ones that I'm using for the footage are just slap on whatever and tester builds, so they aren't refined ones for missions. I will show for a couple that I feel are good to go, but many of these builds in this video are just purely to show you how the arcane performs with the weapon, excluding all external buffs besides Arcane Rage. If you'd like a suggestion, just follow a simple framework of covering your multi-shot, crit, and status chance or status that you want, and then use the Arcane and a Bane or Raw on your Warframe. If you don't like Banes, that's fine. You could still use Elementalist and then add Raw. For the most part, the builds will follow a very similar framework since you don't have to inherently mod differently for the Arcane. The only thing that I want to make a note here is with this arcane, you will not have base damage scaling, so you will need to fit Serration into your build or put Arcane Rage on your Warframe to get your base damage scaling up. This is very important. Let's go over the list of weapons. First one is the Burst On Incarnate. The burst on is a no-brainer. It's one of the best encounter weapons in the game. The reason for this is because of its super high fire rate with very good crit and very decent status chance. Now, technically speaking, it's not inherently a status weapon, but because of how much multi-shot and bullets that you're sending out, the speed at which you build your stacks is very quick, which makes it a good option for Debilitate, especially if you want to opt for a more status focused setup, because the burst on Arcane is already very good with just raw crit damage. You will rack up tons of status effects with the burst on Arcane. It is lots of fun and you have so much ammo to stack this arcane. Next up is the Kuva Comb, shotgun that has a spool mechanic but still has decent enough status and multi-shot at max spool that you can get to 10 stacks incredibly fast. It's a very fun weapon to use, it's decent with crit. My only suggestion is stacking more fire rate through a Warframe ability or the build. It does very good damage and Debilitate is a pretty good option with the Kuva Comb. Next is the Paris Incarnate. I recently did a bow video and wow, the Paris Incarnate is amazing. I had completely forgot about the exclusive mod Visage Ball, I think that's how you say it, granting us an extra 90% status chance. I will be showing this build because it's one of my favorite synergies now, and with the setup we have about 264% status chance. With split flight, hitting multiple enemies at once, with more multi-shot, you will be shredding through enemies when building for gas because you get the gas clouds and then you get heat and toxin from Debilitate. One of the best setups to use with this arcane, I cannot recommend it enough. Next up is the Phantasma, the OG beam weapon. You knew it was going to be here, and you know what, it has innate radiation which already gives heat and electricity. You can go for full heat and just leave the innate radiation to proc with the arcane, or you can mod for corrosive 2 to benefit from the partial strip. That's what I have in the background here. You honestly cannot go wrong with the Phantasma. It's always a go-to for status based weapons. Next is the Convectrix. This beam weapon has ridiculous status chance, but it is more for slash. But if you put efficient beams on, the unique mod for the Convectrix, and then you mod for radiation as an example, a Bane, Elementalist, some crit and fire rate, then this weapon's pretty good. I mean, I don't think it beats a Crux slash setup though, that always reigns king with this weapon, but it's pretty decent. Next up is the Boar Incarnate with the status evolutions. Again, one of the best weapons to pair with Debilitate, because holy, I mean, look at the sheer amount of procs from this arcane and weapon. The Beam Incarnate form chains to nearby enemies, adding raw into the mix. It's just beautiful with this arcane. I really suggest you give this one a go because it is fantastic. It really is. Then we have the Strun Incarnate, also the status king in its incarnate form, easily gaining over 400% status chance with crazy multi-shot. I modded for just corrosive and well, here is what we get. Could be better with external buffing, but yeah. Up next is the Tenet Glaxion, also a very good beam weapon that chains. You can go for any of these secondary elements, and you of course have the progenitor bonus so that you can choose radiation or magnetic. It just works so well with the Tenet Glaxion, and it chains to nearby enemies, allowing you to proc it even more. Next, we have the Phage. One of my favorite beam weapons, and also easily one of, if not the best weapon for this arcane. You apply so many status effects with the 8 different beams from the Phage. It just does so much damage. Not to mention that the Phage is one of the few weapons in the game that can have viral and corrosive together because of its innate viral, which allows you to benefit from both of those combined elements, meaning you get lots and lots of base elements. It is the best, seriously. I wanted to add the AX52 because, well, it's pretty good with the biotic rounds augment for it. However, the AX52 does so much damage that it usually kills the target before you manage to proc Primary Debilitate. I think this can be reserved for beefier targets personally. Next is the Mitre Incarnate. This one completely surprised me. The Incarnate sends out projectiles that seek and ricochet around enemies. With the right evolutions, you can get over 100% status chance easily and will allow you to proc Debilitate often. Plus, the Mitre Incarnate does lots of damage, and it's also very similar to the Latron Incarnate. You could also use that too if you'd like. It's pretty much, they are both similar in nature. Then we have the Hema. The Hema with the augment is also a good option, although it's not the best compared to others. And finally, I saved the best for last, the Coda Base Assist. As many of you know, the Base Assist is one of my favorite weapons in the game. In fact, I will go as far as to say it is one of the best designed weapons in Warframe with the sheer amount of synergies and gimmicks to it. Guess what? Debilitate works with this weapon too very well. The reason for this is because of its unique trait sending out mites that will deal all of your modded status effects plus impact and magnetic. Magnetic will add to debilitate, and you can get blast on the alt fire too. Every time the mite deals damage, which is dealing damage per second, it will then tick up for the status effects per damage instance, meaning it will eventually hit 10 and will proc primary debilitate, but you can send out more than one mite onto one enemy, meaning that this just scales very quickly. Spamming the alt fire with external buffing will absolutely nuke enemies with debilitate, especially if you're using Dante with his page flight granting status vulnerability, Nyx applying 10 radiation stacks as well, Lavos with valence formation, Citrine with prismatic gem. This is such an insane synergy, and I haven't put it on Raw yet. It is so worth it. I probably will find out more ways to make this work with the Arcane, but it is an alt fire spamming setup, so it's not necessarily something for your primary fire. If you're looking more for your primary fire, it's better to go for another Arcane and so on. But personally, if you're going to use Debilitate with the Coda base assist, try and pair a Warframe with it to buff its initial damage of the mites, and then just spam like crazy. My recommendation is getting your magazine capacity up too. Okay, that covers all of the weapons that I have tested and that I would like to show you for this video. I probably will discover more. I just want to let you guys know that this is not limited to the list that I'm about to show you. It could probably work with many more other weapons, so don't worry if I missed something. It doesn't mean that you can't use it. If you think that something's going to work, by all means, go for it. Use it. I'm not stopping you. Now we move on to the Warframes to pair with this Arcane. I mean, starting off, I think Saren, gun buffing Saren would be probably one of the best. Works with her corrosive augment as well, plus toxic lash and raw. Saren will definitely help this Arcane drastically, although I think she might be a bit too strong with the sheer amount of damage instances that you they probably just get deleted from the game. Gun buffing Siren is one of the strongest gun buffing builds in the game, but yeah, you get the idea here. Then we have Lavos with Valence Formation. I swear I'm mentioning this guy every single video because I'm sorry, I know you guys are tired of hearing Lavos Valence Formation, but he's just that good. I can't not say it. And then someone's going to come at me in the comments. But anyway, I digress. Rhino would be perfect. I mean, even adding Smite in for radiation on his setup, which is, I know, heresy. Seriously, Rhino would be pretty damn good with his Raw, with a lot of Raw increasing, and then adding Smite in to add radiation on your weapons. It's a pretty good idea. Then we have Oberon with his Smite augment, or subsuming that onto any Warframe that you see fit. So it's kind of flexible in that regard, which is the nice thing about his subsume ability, being Smite with the augment that gives you radiation. It's pretty handy. Then we have Citrine with her prismatic gem, which increases your status chance as well as your status duration. I mean, it's like the perfect ability to pair with Arcane Debilitate. Citrine is definitely one of the best options, especially if you use Prismatic Companion to allow it to kind of follow you and always have that buff up at all times. Citrine's perfect. Then we have Dante with Page Flight, giving status vulnerability, meaning you apply more status effects when Page Flight hits an enemy. You're very, very strong. Like, Dante is very good for this. Hydroid for his corrosive as well throughout his entire kit. Definitely worth it with plunder and so on. Hydroid is pretty damn strong with any of your weapons to apply 10 or more than 10 corrosive procs and getting the base elements from that too. Saito 9 with resupply, probably one of the best, let's be real. Plus he has invisibility and other options as well that increase your damage. Saito 9 is absolutely insane, especially if you slap on something like Smite and so on, because you cannot put Raw over any of his other abilities besides resupply. So you kind of want to keep resupply. So no Raw on Saito 9. Realistically, Saito 9 and Lavos would be the best because they force elements onto your weapons, meaning guaranteed per hit. That allows you to get 10 stacks extremely fast. That covers all the Warframes. For my final thoughts, this Arcane is a massive buff to status-based weapons. You can make it work with lower status weapons, but you will need some help with external buffing from frames. Raw is too good to pass up with how well it synergizes with the Arcane, and triple dipping, I think it even quadruple dips, I don't even know, I'm not a mass nerd, but you can go for something else if you don't like Raw and run a Bane. If you don't like Bane, then I recommend Raw. Sorry, you have to pick your poison type of thing here. But it is definitely a massive buff to status-based weapons, and it is worth giving a go. I hope you guys learned something new, and I hope you guys down up using some of my suggestions. If you enjoyed the video, could I ask that you smash that like button? It goes a long way for me, and as always, a massive thank you to our channel members. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for your support. I will see you guys in the next video.